Hello and welcome to Call Bank Sports. Uh, I got another view. This one probably looks really similar to the one you're used to. I might change it up a few times. Like I said, I just moved into a new apartment, so I'm trying to figure out what direction my desk should go. But last week, as promised, we did mention that we'll have a giveaway coming. We have one, and we have some more coming in the future, so make sure you stay tuned. We have these jazz hats. We have 4 of them if you can't see. And for this video, we just wanted to start this giveaway season off by if this video gets 22 likes for the 2022 All-Star Game
and future 2022 Jazz World Champions. That one's probably a bit presumptuous, but we'll roll with it.
If the video doesn't get 22 likes, that's not going to happen. So, like, if you're a Jazz fan, you kind of have to like the video now. But if the video gets 22 likes, we will. A random commenter will be awarded with one of these hats, and we'll just make sure if you comment, make sure you check our replies, because we'll say, because I don't want to if let's say it gets 22 likes in 2 years from now and someone random gets that 20-second like, we'll say by the time we record next video, we'll check it then. If we have 22 likes, a random commenter gets the hat. If we don't get 22 likes, don't worry, we have more giveaways coming. You'll have a chance to win these hats. We're not keeping them for
I don't know. I really like the blue one. I really like the light blue one. But yeah.
So Nate,
please,
you need to go comment on the video so you can win it.
I will comment on the video. Dale and I will not enter into this video. But please make sure to also have liked and subscribed to be able to win. We'll pull a random commenter, but they will also have to have liked the video and subscribed to the channel. But let's get into it. We were going this week. We were thinking about what we wanted to talk about. And with the trade deadline being so recent, we really wanted to take a look at kind of where the Jazz are going to be in the future with their contracts and salaries and what options the Jazz are going to have this upcoming offseason and things like that. So do you want to start off, Dale?
Yeah, we just brief for news with the Jazz. We know the Jazz had a winning streak going, which is really exciting. They had a heartbreaker against the Lakers. We have the All-Star break coming up. We have 2 Jasmine in the All-Star game. So that's all exciting. This is all stuff you know. We thought we wanted to look at the long term because the Jazz have been, for several seasons now, have been right on the edge of, they've been a really good team. Have they really been a contender? I think last year, most people kind of put them in the contender race. This year, a lot of people are putting them maybe in the dark horse category. And so we wanted to look at the long term. With the Jazz roster, the contracts that we have, what are the options the Jazz have? What are we looking at? Because as contracts get bigger and bigger, obviously the salary cap gets bigger, but we're looking in 2025, which I know is several years down the road. If both Mitchell and Gobert accept their player options, the Jazz will only have those 2 players under contract as of this point, and that's $84 million right there. That is over half the cap right there.
Well, and I mean, to get into it, something we're going to discuss a tiny bit is that's also the year where the NBA is going to sign their new TV deal. So the cap is going to skyrocket that year. So it's not as bad as it looks from that perspective, at least. But when we're looking at next season where, the Jazz are currently about $7.5 million over the projected cap, and you can drop Juan Hernan-Gomez, and that's going to be fine. It's going to get you there. But it's not necessarily the most ideal scenario there, since then you're sitting and you can't sign any new players. You can only sign people at the minimum. You can't go out and sign players for more lucrative deals. And it's going to be interesting to see what the Jazz are going to do. It's kind of to the point where if it's not the team the Jazz currently have, it looks like there's going to have to be some big trades. And that's not something the Jazz are really known for. They've never really been known for trading big important guys. I mean, the Jordan Clarkson trade was the Jazz getting off of Exum's deal. That wasn't a big player. You did get off you did give up some decent players to get Mike Conley, but even then it wasn't they weren't necessarily key rotation guys. You did lose Crowder, I believe, in that deal, and that was probably the biggest name you lost, since it was a Rubio for Conley swap, if we're being honest. but like, what are the Jazz going to be able to do, and how is Danny Ainge being with Utah going to kind of impact the level of deal that they're willing to make?
Yeah, I think there are two big questions we need to ask and the Jazz need to ask themselves. Um, the first is, are they going to build a championship contender with Mitchell and Gobert? And that's a tough question to ask, because as Jazz fans, like, we love Mitchell and Gobert. I'd love to see them stay around, but with how the salaries are going, is it realistic to say that duo, we can build a championship roster around them? And so
Yeah.
if that's a yes, the next question they have to ask is, what kind of roster do we need to put around Mitchell and Gobert in order for it to be a championship roster? Do you need another all-star close to max kind of player, or do you need a bunch of like just perfect fit role players around them? And what kind of role players do you need? So those are two big questions. We'll probably dig a little bit into it. I'm not going to say we have all the answers, but that's kind of where the Jazz need to be looking
Come on,
at.
Dale, have some confidence. We totally have all the answers. If we were hired right now, the Jazz would win the championship this year. We're not two college students just ranting on the internet.
My first move would be signing Tracy McGrady out of retirement.
No, I think that those are some really interesting questions. And I do think the other question is in regards, like, if the Jazz don't think Donovan and Rudy are the answer, what can you actually get for them, and what's actually a feasible move, right? Since obviously you can get a lot for Donovan, and you could get a lot for Gobert as well, depending on what deals you're able to find. But if those moves don't necessarily get you closer to a championship, I think it's better to keep them as long as you can and just hope something goes right, rather than, be a team that just continues to trade away their best players and can never actually get anything back and never takes any steps forward and is consistently taking steps backwards. Kind of like what I feel like the Kings did here over the trade deadline. Like, maybe Sabonis is going to bring some value, but I think more likely than not, you just gave up Halliburton with a really with a lot of future potential to kind of try to change things up, and it's gonna not really net the Kings anything.
Yeah, that's a tough, because like future is like, teams love building on potential, but like
just look at the Oklahoma City Thunder for that. If you need proof of that.
I think the Jazz historically, they draft more for potential than for current talent. And so they got really lucky with Stockton. Stockton was a potential pick. Guess who else was a potential pick? Exum. Exum was a potential pick, and that didn't play out. So I wonder if the Jazz are looking at it like saying, hey, we have something great now. And if you're trading Gobert or Mitchell, like, unless there's just a disgruntled star that's better than them, which there aren't many players better than them in the league. So that's and if there's a disgruntled star, they're probably not going to want to come to Utah. So unless you can somehow get like a Jokic or Embiid or a player of that caliber, which is almost impossible, I think if they decide to move on from either Mitchell or Gobert or both in like some huge move, really the only option is getting a bunch of great potential players, like young players who can. So
not draft picks, and that's what you're saying, not draft picks. I would need them there to actually be names.
Yeah, you would need
something they were trying.
You need players that are like, they're good and you think they can be a lot better, and you probably want draft picks with it.
Yeah.
And so if they make that move, what the move would be in my imagination, and this is why I don't think they'll make it because it's so risky, and maybe they'll do it in a few years if Gobert starts getting injuries more, like earlier in his career, he's kind of injury prone. So if that kind of happens, maybe they'll make this down the road. But right now, they would probably end up trading Gobert. He's the older player. He's getting towards the tail end of his prime. Mitchell is just entering his prime. So then you trade Gobert for a lot of young talent, and you move the timeline from the Jazz instead of right now. You move it to the future a few years. It's risky though, because
you need to keep Mitchell for that long.
You need to keep Mitchell. If you trade Gobert, like, what team is going to have a bunch of young talent that you want? And what team is going to give up a bunch of young talent for a center in their 30s that you have to build your entire roster around? So Gobert is a great player, but he's a really tough piece to trade. His salary is huge, and he needs to be with the right roster to be effective. So I think they're keeping Mitchell and Gobert unless some huge injuries come up or someone's disgruntled or something like that. I think it's
Yeah. There
with
could
how things are
theoretically be
going
that
now.
there could be that deal that is just so good that you couldn't say no.
Yeah,
And I do think that Gobert is one of the top, 20 players in the league. But at the same time, like you're right, you do need to have your roster built around him. And you mentioned Exum, and it's just so painful to think about Exum. Like, what if he had actually panned out and the Jazz had like a defensive minded, like star point guard on the team right now? Like that would just be
and he brings size. Like,
and
X,
he bring yeah, like I don't want to get
XM
into
XM is
reminiscing
what
on
Ben
Exum, but
XM's potential is what Ben Simmons is now. So
yeah,
imagine having
a
like a
bit
Ben
shorter,
Simmons on the
but
team right now. Yeah,
that would for all the good things and none of the bad things, but that would be it's disappointing to see that pick, not pan out the way it could have. But can't just reminisce. Jazz have to move forward. And I do think it's really interesting. Like they have a lot of money tied up. I think we might see a trade this offseason. I don't know what it's going to be. I don't know who it would be with. And it's going to be hard. I'm not always necessarily a fan of trades because I have to feel like we're getting a lot better from it for it to be worth it. But of course, both teams have to be happy with what's going down in the trade. And like, who could you trade Bojan for? Do you somehow work out a deal, sending some picks to Charlotte and trade Bojan for like nobody come at me in the comments, but like
I know where
Gordon
this is going.
Hayward. I mean, which I think could be a great signing potentially. And so there are definitely trades, and I don't even know if that trade works from a salary standpoint.
Hayward's getting paid a lot.
Yeah, he is. And maybe you can make some stuff like that work. Like maybe you keep Juan and you package him in that deal, but I don't know why you have the Hornets doing that. And that's the thing, is it's so easy to come up with trades that as a Jazz fan, I want to see and I want them to make. It's really hard to come up with trades that the other team will actually make. Um, because it was like when the Rudy Gobert trade rumors were going around and they're like, yeah, maybe we can package up Theis and Smart to send to Utah for Gobert. And it's like
what?
What? Like you realize that Utah has to want to make that trade, right? Like this is not a realistic trade. So that's the question. Who wants what we have and who has what we want and that the Jazz can actually line it up.
Here's what I would just thinking of the players that may be available in the near future that would actually make the Jazz would be a good move for the Jazz.
Yeah.
And like there's a lot of stars where I'm just like there's no way they're leaving their team anytime soon. Or they're older stars like Chris Paul would be great, but his salary's never going to work and we only get him for like two good years of Chris Paul. So
yeah, and why would he, move 12 hours north when he's doing as well as he is in Phoenix? But yeah, I get what you're saying.
So that's not a smart move at all. Probably for either side. But I'm just thinking around the league. I know, like I think Jaylen Brown might be the best player that's like a big name that the Jazz could wait for. Like, this is why I don't think the Jazz should be hasty to make a move because I think the Jazz should be patient. They have a good enough roster that maybe they can make it run to the finals with how it is now. It, like we're saying with the roster, it's probably going to get tougher and tougher because of all the money we have tied up. But the Celtics aren't performing as well as they should. People are talking, hey, it should be Jason Tatum's team or Jaylen Brown's team, and the other one needs to move. The Celtics are going to hold on to Tatum rather than holding on to Brown. I think that's what most people would agree with. I think Tatum's a more talented player. I personally like Brown a little bit more. I think he brings more, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's like really nitty gritty. But I think that would be an awesome move for the Jazz. He's the exact kind of player the Jazz would like. He's best friends with Donovan Mitchell. So it would be tough to get him. You'd have to trade a lot. You'd be looking at trading Bojan and Conley or Bojan and Clarkson, and you might have to get a third team in there just to pick up some picks. But I think if they're looking at, hey, this build around Mitchell and Gobert, you need to look for players like that, because I don't think, like, I don't know, like, we have one of the best 3-point shooting teams already. What kind of players do you need around Mitchell and Gobert to make it a championship team? I think you probably need an obvious third option. And right now it's like, is it Conley? Is it Bojan? Both of them feel more like fourth or fifth options than actual third options.
Than actual third options. And I really like that, since that feels like, an actual move that would help the Jazz in the future. And like you said, not just a move for the sake of making a move. Like, I know a lot of people were talking about the Jazz trying to get Holmes from the Kings, which first of all, like, I
like him. I don't think he fits.
No, and that's the thing. Like, it would have been a move for the sake of making a move. I don't think it would have actually helped the Jazz win a title. And the teams that make moves for the sake of making moves, sometimes good things happen. And then other times you have the Lakers this season, who I know we just lost to, so they're winning something. But you have the Lakers this season who were just like, why did you go get Westbrook? Like, it's just not working out, and it was not the right move for them or for the organization, and even for the league. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, where things go, and it's going to be rough for the Jazz. If you're able to keep Donovan and Gobert long term, and you're able to get to the new TV deal, like, there's some potential for things in the future. If you're able to make it through Bojan and Conley's contracts, which both I think have a couple more years after this, like, again, and then get a big free agent, there's some potential there. But the Jazz are going to have to make things work probably the next 2 seasons with who they have, unless they somehow make a major trade in the offseason. And it's possible. I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, so that's kind of like where the Jazz are long term. Like, a lot of money's tied up, and there aren't any obvious moves. So I think what the front office is doing, it might be a little frustrating to the Jazz because they see we're losing. We want to fix it. Let's make a move now. I think the front office has been very patient. I think the Ingles move, their hands are kind of tied. That move made 100% sense.
Yeah.
So I think they'll be patient, and they won't, because they've, like, the Jazz team, I think the sum is greater than the individual parts. So I think they realize that, like, Mike Conley is more valuable to the Jazz than he is to probably any other organization. So trading him, you're not going to get something better. And that's kind of a tough situation to be in. But, like, if the right move comes up, you have Conley there, you have Bojan there, which have enough salary, are good pieces, that you have pieces there. The downside is you don't have any picks. So maybe one thing the Jazz might want to be looking at is trading, like, players in the, like, Rudy Gay tier, and trying to pick up some picks to be prepared for a trade down the line.
No, and it's really interesting, right? Since the question is, like, when you look at the moves the Jazz have made, what moves have been bad moves? What moves have been the wrong moves? And looking at it, like, I don't want to include draft moves. Like, the draft is hard. I don't want to say, oh, well, they didn't draft Kawhi Leonard, right? Like, I don't necessarily want to go with that. And you look at it and you're like, okay, maybe had they offered Gordon Hayward the max contract extension right when he got it, so that he wasn't right when he had that option a few years before he left. Like, maybe you have Mitchell, Hayward, and Gobert right now.
Maybe Hayward doesn't get hurt.
Maybe he doesn't get hurt. But even then, if you have Hayward, does Donovan Mitchell turn into who he's going to be this soon? True. Does he get the time he gets? Does he become a young superstar? Or if Hayward's on the team, do you still pick up Mitchell, or do you pick someone else entirely? Like, going back and changing things like that is a big deal. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But we really appreciate you guys for watching. Please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so that we're able to do this giveaway. We really want to give away a hat. So, and we're super excited. Have fun with the All-Star break, and we will see you again next Saturday after the Dallas Mavericks game. Go Jazz!